The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And right now, that's what the Pirates are doing offensively with Andy Haines.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast, everybody. My name is Ethan Smith, your host of the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day. Hope you're all having a phenomenal Tuesday. Today's episode, of course, is brought to you by Game Time. And Game Time, like the physical time of the game, came yesterday. It was a fun episode with Gary yesterday. There was a lot of optimism with Quinn Priester coming up, Andy Rodriguez, Leo Verpigero. A lot of the young guys are here. The Pirates started 6 rookies last night in a game where a lot of people said, okay, let's get excited a little bit. Let's have some fun and get excited. Well, Quinn Priester started off very well and then kind of snowballed a little bit. By a little bit, I mean 7 earned runs, but for the most part, first start of your MLB career, it's not going to be perfect. Then the offense, again, just did absolutely nothing, folks. Nothing. The offense did nothing. Pirates lost 11-0 last night. 4 combined hits, with those coming from McCutchen, Santana, Triolo, and Gonzalez. And it's getting to a point now where the Pirates have been shut out 5 times in the last calendar month. The last time they scored more than 4 runs in a game was July 4th against the LA Dodgers 2 weeks ago to the day. The time before that was June 30th. And then we all remember the San Diego series that felt like this team was finally getting on the right track. Well, nope. Pirates are still winless coming out of the break right now. And there's been a lot of change, if you've noticed. Obviously, you see Jared Triolo's in the lineup a lot with Haynes still being injured. They call up Andy Rodriguez finally. Austin Hedges leaves the lineup. Henry Davis is still in right field. Nick Gonzalez, Brian Reynolds, Jack Sawinski, the usual suspects are there. But now you've brought in highly touted prospects from your system to play here, to hope to get a spark, to start the youth movement and show us what we have. And this is what happens yesterday. Now, I'm going to go back to an old adage that not a lot of people would understand, but I am a Los Angeles Clippers fan. And there was a string of time when the Los Angeles Clippers were one of the better teams in all of basketball, around right before I graduated, 2013 through like 2017. And every year, the same thing happened. Every single year, they had a very good team, and then they lost in the postseason. About 2 or 3 years after the firing of Doc Rivers, with him then heading to Philadelphia, they bring in Tyronn Lue and get to their first conference championship, even without their star player, Kawhi Leonard, in franchise history. So there's a lot of different changes with player personnel, with lineups, everything. But there was one constant there that was stopping everything, and that was Doc Rivers, who has not made a conference championship since departing from LA. Sound familiar? Yeah, it should. Because what is the one constant that is still here for the Pittsburgh Pirates, despite bringing up all these prospects, despite changing up the lineups against good matchups, despite having talent on this roster, Andy Haines is still here. And the experiment with him should have been done a long time ago. I said this last year, folks. I was talking about this last season. Being a host of this podcast, doing it every day for the entirety of the year, I shouldn't have to be talking about this again a year later, even 2 years later. This is not what I want to be talking about to you guys at all. And a friendly reminder for everybody that might not know, and even if you do, just to remind yourself again, Andy Haines he didn't choose to leave the Brewers. They didn't move on gracefully. They fired Andy Haines. Fired him. And now he's in Pittsburgh. Been here for about 3 years now. And the Pirates' offense has been abysmal. Case in point on Andy Haines. Case in point. And you know what's even more hilarious about this? It has nothing to do with the Pirates. Christian Yelich was a highly touted player the Brewers trade for Miami. Had a great start to his tenure in Milwaukee. Then Andy Haines, of course, was there until 2021. And in the time that Andy Haines was the hitting coach of the Milwaukee Brewers while Christian Yelich was there, in 2020, Christian Yelich slashed. Yes, this is Christian Yelich we're talking about. Christian Yelich slashed 205, 356, 430, 786. 2020 was, like a weird year for everybody. 2021, okay, he had a bad COVID season. He'll come back, right? 248, 362, 373, 736. He had a .050 OPS drop. His OPS dropped by 50 in 2021. And Yelich, wonderful power hitter from the left side, knows how to take it over that right field wall in Milwaukee, only had 21 home runs in that span. Now, you look at the Milwaukee Brewers, who are in first place in the NL Central, and you look at Yelich's stats this year, slashing 286, 378, 472, and 850 with 13 home runs. He has 8 more home runs. He literally will tie his home run total from 2020 and 2021 under Andy Haines. I don't know what other adage I could use there. And then you look at the Pirates' current hitting stats. It's awful. They're 22nd in batting average, 24th in OPS, 27th in home runs, 26th in RBIs, 22nd in hits, 21st in on-base percentage, and 25th in slugging. The only 2 major metrics of offensive statistics as a team that the Pirates don't rank in the bottom 10 in Major League Baseball are base on balls and strikeouts. Which makes sense because Andy Haines tells all of his guys to just sit up there and look pretty with the bat on their shoulder and not swing. And look at called third strikes right down the middle 75% of the time. And you could argue that if it wasn't for Carlos Santana, Andrew McCutchen, G-Man Choi, these veterans of this team that don't need to listen to Andy Haines and don't need a hitting coach, those numbers would probably be worse. The Yankees, by the way, have been a talk about this because they fired their hitting coach in the middle of the season. Because they, to be fair, ranked fairly even, if not worse, than the Pirates offense, albeit without Aaron Judge. But they said, hey, why not? Let's change something. Let's see if this can spark the offense a little bit, right? To go use another team's success here about the Yankees. The Yankees, outside of the break so far, have actually done pretty okay, especially offensively. They lost to the Angels last night. But at the end of the day, you got to look at it from the standpoint that something has to change. I mean, coming out of the break, the Yankees have lost 7-2, won 6-3, lost 8-7, and lost 3-4. A lot of their struggles have not been with hitting now. A lot of it has been with pitching. So why can't the Pirates do it? I even tweeted about it. There's nothing stopping them from firing Andy Haines. There's nothing stopping them from moving on. He hasn't helped any of these prospects that have come up here yet. Henry Davis looked good for the first week and a half, 2 weeks that he was here. Been in a noticeable slump. Jack Sawinski's in one of the middle of his 0 for 30s or 0 for 45s again. I mean, the lineup changes. Nothing changes. The prospects come up. Nothing changes. Literally the definition of insanity, how I started this show. Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You're watching third strikes. They're not being aggressive at the plate. Bunting in key situations. These have just all been things that have been a part of the Andy Haines experience, if you want to call it, in Pittsburgh since he got here. He teaches his hitters to be patient at the plate, but I think it needs to be time for the Pirates to lose their patience on whatever the hell they think Andy Haines is going to do here. Change sucks in the middle of the year. It does. But at this point, you've seen it happen now for 2 years. What else do you need to see? That's really where I'm getting at with all this. What else do you need to see? I don't need to see anything else because I'm tired of watching this team look lackluster and get shut out every day. I'm tired of seeing them watch third strikes go right down the middle or be in favorable hitters counts and take strikes right down the middle, down 9-0. Do something about it, Pittsburgh. Management, do something about it. Andy Haines does not need to be here because the longer that he's here, the longer this team is just going to be garbage. You can make the argument with Derek Shelton, too. He was a former hitting coach. He is not safe here either. He should be able to step in and notice there's a problem. And that has not happened. This offense has been awful since April. And speaking of, at what point do we stop thinking about the future and think about winning now? We'll talk about that here in just a moment, but I want to let you guys know about the wonderful people over at Game Time. Make sure you download the Game Time app right now and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase at Game Time, because buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. You get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off, and download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. You want to listen to the hometown broadcast of the Pittsburgh Pirates this season? Make sure you download the SiriusXM app. It's SXM for the hometown broadcast. And now that the Pirates are where they are, I think it's safe to say I was wrong. I expected this team to find a way out of that 9-game stretch where they lost 9 straight against the NL Central and come back and stay in the hunt. I didn't think they were going to compete with it, but I figured they might stay in the hunt. Well, now they are tied for last in the NL Central with the St. Louis Cardinals. And at the beginning of the year, I predicted 74 wins. I said 74 and 88 is where I thought this team would be. I thought that would be a noticeable jump. That would be a 12-game improvement from last year. But since the 20-8 start, since the 20-8 start, the Pirates are 21 and 45, which if they would have started the year that way and stayed on that pace over the course of 162 games is 52 and 110. You know where they're sitting at right now on pace for since that 20-8 start? Since 21 and 45, if they finish at that pace now, 62 and 100. It would be their third straight 100-loss season. I'm going to say fourth because if COVID was a full season, it would have been. And they've just fallen off a cliff. So at what point do we stop thinking about the rebuild? Because there's still a ton of people to come up. And if the light is at the end of the tunnel, we have seen it. But at what point do we stop worrying about the future, start worrying about the present, winning baseball games? And I've been very adamant at telling you guys I think they're going to compete next year for the division. And I think 2025 is almost a lock for that. But the gut punch that it would be to this team, to these players, to lose 100 games again, what is that teaching your young guys? Truthfully, what is that teaching your young guys? This is supposed to be a year, and it still very well can be, where these guys learn to compete at the big league level, where these guys learn what it's like to win a little bit. Are the Pirates going to compete this year? No. They would have to go on like a Cincinnati Reds level win streak to even think about being back in the NL Central conversation. But that doesn't mean that they can't be competitive down the last 2.5, 3 months of the year. That doesn't mean that Nick Gonzalez, Henry Davis, Eddie Rodriguez, Quinn Priester, Liover Peguero, all these young guys can't learn how to win a little bit. So that way when you go into 2024, you already have that mindset. Now, obviously, injuries have played a big role in all this. They have. O'Neal Cruz, you practically lost an entire season of O'Neal Cruz. You've lost a lot of development where we were expecting him to learn how to hit lefties a little bit better and take that next step and be a budding star. Now you don't get that. You've had all the injuries to the starting pitching staff. Mike Burrows would have been here already. Quinn Priester probably still wouldn't even be up here. JT Brubaker would have been doing his thing. You've had the injuries in the bullpen, like Harleen Garcia, who was a big acquisition for us as a lefty option out of the bullpen. We haven't even seen him play, which has led to the emergence of Jose Hernandez, but still. Injuries have played a part in this too, folks. You can admit that. It's not nobody's going to get mad at you for admitting that this team has been injury riddled, and you can take some of that to what the record is now. But this is my message to everybody. Keep watching, because these young guys are only going to get better. Henry Davis and Nick Gonzalez are only going to get better. Andy Rodriguez is only going to get better with time. Quinn Priester has stuff to work on, but time heals all wounds as a starting pitcher. Leover Piguero. I mean, who knows? He could end up being something. Jared Triolo has been a welcome surprise. Jack Sawinski maybe can stop with this string of 0 for 30 plus every single month at one point in the month. Now I'll go back to the first segment and say none of this matters if they don't fire Andy Haines, which I would love to get that message on my phone right now. But I haven't. And as I mentioned, if the Pirates lose and the Cardinals defeat the Marlins tonight, Pirates will be in last place in the NL Central all by themselves. It's kind of eerie, isn't it? And tonight's game, you have Mitch Keller facing Aaron Savali. So we'll see what the Pirates can do and see if they can bounce back and get their first win after the All-Star break. They got swept by the Giants, lose yesterday. They need a win, and they need a win bad. And we'll see if it can be part of the young process that this team is going by right now. There's going to be growing pains. You heard me and Gary talk about that yesterday. There's going to be those moments where these guys look like rookies. It's just going to happen. But at some point, start winning some ball games, folks. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates. Thank you guys for always tuning in to this show on YouTube, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the videos, comment, and subscribe. Trade deadline. Figured I'll bring it up. It's only a couple weeks away. Pirates at one point were thought to be buyers and sellers. I think that's kind of out the window now. I could still see them bringing in a starting pitcher just because they need the innings. But we'll see what they decide to do. So what do the Pirates do? Well, candidates for trades I think are pretty obvious. You have Rich Hill, Carlos Santana, Austin Hedges, G-Man Choi. I could even throw Connor Joe in there. Any reliever not named David Bednar, and maybe even David Bednar if you get a crazy offer. But I do think with how close they are, I don't think you move on from your all-star closer. And, you know, I mean, the season has slipped away. It happens. But at the end of the day, this was something we expected. Rich Hill wasn't going to be here past July. Carlos Santana, I'd like him to stay. But we'll see what they decide to do. I think the smart thing would be to trade him, but we'll see what they decide to do. Austin Hedges, who cares? G-Man Choi, I think I would like to see them hold on to one of those guys. I would like Santana, but either way, I'd be happy about it because that first base role has been very, very nice to watch this year with those two. And how bad it's been the past couple years, it's very, very relieving to see it. I do think Rich Hill obviously is the candidate, like the biggest candidate to trade. Pitching is just always paramount at the deadline. We all know this. And, I mean, relief-wise, who knows? Maybe somebody takes a flyer on Moretta. You flip him after trading him for Kevin Newman for Dowry Moretta. Maybe that's something you think about doing. I don't know. I think the relief options are just so thin right now that I don't think they can really move on from anybody. But you never know. And obviously, too, something you guys know, none of these players are going to bring back any major prospects, but it's always better to get something than nothing. I would compare Rich Hill's trade value to kind of what we saw from Tyler Anderson. I think that's the kind of deal you'll probably get. But then you look across baseball, and I think this trade deadline has a lot of intrigue to it on how fun it could be. You have the whole Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, the Dylan Cease White Sox sale that they need to just go ahead. They need to sell that team off. Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn, Luis Robert, Liam Hendricks. Then in division, I mean, I noted Cody Bellinger and Marcus Stroman. Like, what do the Cubs do? Do they stand pat and try to keep pace with the Brewers and the Reds, or do they sell off? The Mets and the Padres, I think their veterans could very well be on the move. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, who knows? I don't think they'll go that crazy, but obviously we'll be covering the trade deadline and any trades that happen with the Pittsburgh Pirates over the next couple of weeks. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. Have a blessed Tuesday. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the flip side, everybody.